drama by reporting on news stories that are relevant to Black America without all the hyped up false. Now listen here on the Unbought and Unbossed Show with Devontae Goins. He's here to skip past all the drama by reporting on news stories that are relevant to Black America without all the hyped up false context that drives ratings. Our news deserves special attention, and Devontae intends on giving it that attention right here on this show, right now. This is the Unbought and Unbossed Show with Devontae Goins.
Everybody, we are live. Couldn't get the Google to turn off the speakers around here from playing NWA Fight to Power, so and F to Police. So hey, I had to get up and manually turn it off. Now, as we were what we were about to get into in tonight's show is over the last mayor on down has called for the Department of Men. But what I need everybody to understand is that Andy Ginther and Zach Klein, who is the Columbus City attorney, did not call for the Department of Justice to do the same thing as Black Columbus did. They called for the Department of Justice to come in and review the problem and to review the department. We've had enough reviews, everybody. We've had enough studies done. Now it's time for change. What Black Columbus is calling for and what Black Columbus leaders have all gotten together to do is they've all worked and to call for the United States Department of Justice to come in and to investigate the Columbus Police Department. As simple as that. And with that investigation that they are going to do, could steer and hopefully lead to a dissent decree. And that's where our conversation and our coverage of this topic begins tonight. So the question is, what is a dissent decree? So a consent decree is basically a court-approved agreement on what reforms CPD, for example, will take and what kinds of timelines it will take them to implement those reforms. That's all a consent decree is. It's simple as that, but most folk don't like consent decrees. It's worth noting that in 1994, Congress gave the Department of Justice the power to address a pattern and practice of police misconduct within departments and to sue cities for civil relief. Consent decrees can involve any government agency, but are most commonly used within local police departments. And since that time, how many investigations and decrees are started each year has kind of somewhat become political, believe it or not. So back when President Obama was in office, there were literally 25 different investigations launched. One of the most infamous two of the most infamous investigations being launched were into the Baltimore Police Department and into the Ferguson Police Department. And out of those 25 investigations that were launched during his time in office, 15 consent decrees were entered into by the Department of Justice. And just to give you some stark contrasts, there were only 3 when George W. Bush was president. And when that occupant, whose name is Trump, was in office, there was only 1 investigation in his 4-year time. While he was in office. And no, there was no consent decree entered into. Now, it is worth noting that the Department of Justice also withdrew from the potential of consent decrees in Baltimore and Chicago that had started being negotiated under the Obama administration. So let me repeat that one more time, because I don't think some of you get the gravity of how important these consent decrees are when it comes to reforming police departments, and how important a consent decree is going to be when it comes to reforming the Columbus Division of Police that sits on Mount Carney Boulevard, the headquarters. Anyways, so when the former occupant of the White House, whose name is Trump, some of y'all call him Orange Jumpalupin, some worse, when he was in office, his Department of Justice withdrew from 2 potential consent decrees that were in the process of being negotiated under the Obama administration with Baltimore and Chicago. And we all know how corrupt the Baltimore and Chicago police departments are. It's safe to say that the Columbus Police Department isn't too much far off from the corruptness that Baltimore and Chicago looks like. I'm just saying. So, now that you understand what consent decrees are, let's now discuss how consent decrees work. So basically, if there is an investigation by the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, and they find that there are patterns or practices of unconstitutional policing, there can only be 2 primary options for resolving those. The first option is that the city, the police department, and the Department of Justice, the DOJ, enter into a voluntary agreement where they determine what changes need to be made and a timeline for implementation of those changes. Or the second option is the DOJ can issue a consent decree which would require the department and the city to implement those specific changes. So what Black Columbus leaders are simply doing at this hour is they are calling on the DOJ to not only to, number one, come in to investigate the Columbus Police Department, not review like the mayor and the city attorney wants them to do, because we don't need another damn review. We already know what the problem is. We know that the practices and the policies that they have in place need to be changed. We know they need to be reformed. We've had all of these studies done. We need a consent decree. So what we are simply calling on is the Department of Justice to come in and to begin an investigation, and to allow their investigation, not to enter into a voluntary agreement with the DOJ, Columbus Police Department, and the city. No, we need them to enter into a consent decrement right now. We need them to enter into a consent decrement which will force the city to implement those reforms in a certain timeline. I'm sure all of you know by now, or you should know by now, that the mayor has said he's going to put and replace and install a chief from the outside by the end of the month. That's what he said. But you know what I find interesting is that out of the 35 or 37 people that applied for the job, there were 9 finalists. And out of those 9 finalists, the citizens have not got the opportunity to speak to any one of them or to even tell the mayor that we aren't going to stand for that any longer. I bet most of you didn't even realize that one of the 9 finalists is corrupt. The guy from Dallas, his name is slipping out of my mind. I believe his name is Derek Dennis. And he's with the Dallas Police Department. He was under investigation within the last 5 years, and yet Andy Ginther, y'all's mayor, who y'all elected into office because we didn't put anybody up against him to run against him. I could tell you this, he will never run unopposed in this city again. But the mayor has allowed one of the finalists for chief to become a person who is under and who has been under investigation in the last 5 years. But yet he's saying he's bringing about change and he's going to bring in an outsider to bring in this reform. You know, the other thing I don't get about the 9 finalists that are on that list is the mayor all of a sudden thinks we in Black Columbus are going to get off his ass and quit coming for his ass and quit holding his ass accountable if he appoints to the position of chief a Black person from the outside. No, baby, we aren't going to stop holding you accountable because I maybe you all have forgotten. Excuse the hell out of me if you have forgotten, but I think I need to remind you all that the longest serving chief in Columbus and really one of the longest serving in the nation, he served for 19 years between the years of 1990 and 2009. His name was James G. Jackson Sr. And he was Black. And conviction and admit that there has been some problems and there is trouble in the waters down at CPD headquarters. There is not only trouble in the waters, but there is also racism that is within CPD. All I need us to do is I need us to stand up and be willing to fight the power and to not stand for any more of their bullshit and to call them out on their bullshit when they're wrong. That's what we need to do. That's all I need us to do. Now, when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about where do we go from here, meaning how can we begin to take what we've talked about, what we've learned, what we now know about consent decrees and everything that goes along with reforming CPD and imagining, as Andy likes to say, public safety here in the city. Now, where do we go with that information and how do we bring about real change? We're going to talk about that. Where do we go from here right after this? Told right now by Superintendent Dr. Talisa Dixon with the Columbus City Schools is that some Columbus high schoolers may have to resort to using COTA buses to get to school this fall due to a bus driver shortage. And the question I pose to you is, was this always a problem? Well, let's get right to the facts of this story and what's going on. So it's very simple that the Columbus Board of Education has listened to a presentation from administrators on yesterday evening outlining a transportation plan for 2021-2022 school year in which the yellow buses would only be available for students in grades K through 8, meaning elementary and middle school. And students in high school would have to resort to public transportation utilizing COTA buses. And utilizing not just COTA buses, but the existing routes. So what that means is for someone who is going to Linda McKinley but lives in North Linden, they would have to resort, depending on the part of North Linden they live in. If they live on the very tip-top edge of North Linden, let's say up by towards Carl and Morse Roads, they would have to get on one bus and then get off at the corner of Cleveland and Morse Road, then get on the number 6 and take the number 6 on down to Cleveland and Duxbury, and then walk up Duxbury to get to school. 2 buses. That's insane, everybody. That because there's a bus driver shortage, we are about to see what I am calling right now. And mark my words, if they don't fix this problem sooner rather than later before the school year comes, they thought this year was bad with the graduation rate, with them yanking hope away from students, and 46% of students of seniors not graduating. Oh, the rate is going to be much higher this year, baby. Mark my words on this, because high schoolers, they aren't going to. Some of them will, but the majority of them, they're already having trouble just getting to the regular school bus stop on time, let alone now you're wanting them to cut the COTA bus. And for some of them, that's 2 and 3 COTA buses. And the COTA buses in most parts of the city don't start running until between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. How is this right? But you know what? We did learn yesterday that I didn't even know, is this, that the proposal, yes, while it also applies to K through 8 students who live within the Columbus City School District boundary lines, but it also applies to those attending private and charter schools who are using Columbus City Schools buses for transportation to transport students to school according to Ohio law. But you know what? Ohio law, this is what I was saying and what I just learned. Ohio law doesn't require transportation to be provided for high school students. So what is they are simply saying right now, Dr.
Talisa Dixon, who's the superintendent of CCS, and her staff is that, look, up until now, we've been able to provide students with a luxury here in the largest school district in the state of Ohio. And a luxury it was. Now we can no longer provide them that luxury. I'm just saying, if this was a problem, if this is a problem now, and it's probably always been a problem, or a problem that they could have foreseen coming, and the pandemic has just shined a light on it. But not only that, you know what I would do if I was them? I know it's going to lose them money, but it would win them points with parents and their students. I know you have contracts with private and charter schools. Stop those contracts. Stop them immediately for the K-8 students from allowing them to use Columbus City Schools transportation. And if you stop them, then your high school students would be able to utilize transportation. But hey, don't know what I'm talking about right here. I'm just saying that a lot of school board members that were on that call yesterday, they expressed some deep-rooted concerns about the proposal proposed by Dr. Dixon, including the safety access and the access period to bus stops that I just pointed out and alluded to. But not only that, what one board member, James Ragland, said is, and I quote, this is a direct quote from him. He said, our high school students will be at some point in the school year catching the bus when it's pitch black outside. You've got to cross the street just to get to the bus stop in many cases. James had a point right there. He had a big point. And yet we don't seem to get that, but I'm not going on the attack, everybody. Listen to against Dr. Dixon. I'm just simply stating fact, especially when it comes to our Black children here in Black Columbus, is that they already face a lot of obstacles just getting to school, let alone transportation and food and all of that before they are even able to walk in the doors. But now you're going to place yet another burden on them. And then we wonder why our graduation rate isn't as high as we would like, and our dropout rate is higher than we would like. You got to help me. And I know we do all that we can, but we can do a little better. We have to do better because we owe it to these children. Because keep in mind, until you turn 18, as my mama and my grandmama used to say, you are a child. It may have teenager in, but you are a child, especially if you're living under their roof. But hey, so the school year begins on August 26th, and the board is going to convene at their next board meeting on June 29th, right before the 4th of July holiday, to take a vote on this, or at least they're expected to vote on this. And based off of how the meeting went last night, I don't expect the vote to go down in a way in which everyone thinks it's going to go down. But we'll see. We're back right after this. So tonight, this past evening, we learned that the Franklin County Commissioners, Kevin Boyce and John O'Grady, had apparently watched the show and listened to the somewhat of the outcries of Black Columbus. And the reason I had to say it like that is because it's actually laughable. So let me lie all of this out at your feet for you tonight. At about 4 o'clock today, Dontavius Giles, who is a state representative for the 25th House District here in Ohio, posted a Facebook post congratulating, before an official public announcement was made shortly after 6 o'clock, 2 hours prior to, he announced along with Robert Lee, the husband of Don Tyler Lee, that she was being named and appointed acting Franklin County Commissioner. To those of you who don't know who Don Tyler Lee is, not surprising, most of Black Columbus doesn't know who she is. So let me educate you on who she is. She is a former Deputy Chief of Staff to, you guessed it, ding, 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 Mayor Andy Ginther. And she has been a leader in the United Way of Central Ohio. She's 48 years old, and she served for more than 5 years until just this past few months ago when she resigned as the mayor's Deputy Chief of Staff. She is the first Black woman to serve as a Franklin County Commissioner. She is on the record tonight telling the Dispatch that while public service is not foreign to her, this is certainly a new way and a unique opportunity to serve residents of Franklin County. And while during her tenure, it will be brief, she wants to let us all know that she will serve with her whole heart and with her best capacity for the residents of Franklin County. And it is an honor for her to serve this community, and she grew up in and has been a part of this community for many years. Now that we've got all that jargon out the way, this is so fucking laughable because we called on not Mayor and Andy Ginther, but we called on Franklin County Commissioner Kevin Boyce and John O'Grady to appoint a Black woman to the seat in the, not just the interim, but to officially appoint a Black woman to the seat. We called on not only them to do it, but we also called on the Franklin County Democratic Party Central Committee ward members, because they get the final ultimate say in all of this. And so on this past Monday during our show, I want to get the language right for you. And what I mean by I want to get the language right for you is I want to be absolutely correct when I state the 4 demands we gave, because the county commissioners, Kevin Boyce and John O'Grady, did not follow our 4 demands. And I want you all to be absolutely knowledgeable, in case you didn't know what the 4 demands were, that we were yelling from the rooftops that we wanted when it came to filling former Franklin County Commissioner Marilyn Brown's seat. So the first thing that we asked for is a Black woman. We know that. So the second thing we asked for is to allow the community to nominate people to fill this vacant seat. They did not allow community members to put in names for this seat. Now, people from within the community or elected officials have what they have done. Listen here, let me educate you. What they have done is they've come out and said they want to be considered in this whole appointment process. They want to be considered for this seat. The second thing we demanded, because we didn't ask, we demanded, is that the Democratic Party, the Central Ward Committee, that they do an interview selection. Now, this demand is still able to be met, and I damn sure hope it is met by the almost 20 people that have thrown their name into the ring and in some form or fashion or way or another informed everybody within the county that they were interested in being considered for the appointment for this seat. Now, the third thing we are asking for is, after you do these interviews, Central Ward Committee members, is that you release a list of finalists to be reviewed. So we'll know who the finalists you are considering for the job. And the fourth and the final thing we are asking of each of the party war committee members is this: is that they take a vote on who each of the finalists are to be appointed. And whoever the top vote getter is will win the appointment. So, for example, let's say Elizabeth Brown, who is a current city council member, current state rep, Erica Crawley, current Westerville, I believe he is in, school board member, Brother Sam, because I'm slipping on his last name, and Mary O'Shawney. Those four people are the top four finalists. Now, what we are asking is that out of those four finalists, the committee ward members take a vote. And whoever the top vote getter is, for example, if it is Elizabeth Brown, that she get the appointment. Now, let me push this a bit further here on tonight. The reason why this is so much of a shock, not only to Black Columbus, but even to the Columbus Dispatches, because this is business as usual. Business as usual, meaning we'll give Black Columbus a little bit of what they want. They wanted a Black woman, so we'll give them a Black woman. We'll allow her to make history, being the first Black female to be appointed to the Franklin County Commission to serve at the pleasure of the Franklin County residents. But what we won't do is we won't follow any of your demands. Not only will we not follow any of your demands, but what we also will not do is we won't be open and transparent. What we also will not do is make sure this isn't one of our party loyalists. But what's interesting enough about Dawn Tyler Lee is that nobody knew who she was, but the Democratic Party did, because she was a party insider. She served at the pleasure of Andy Ginther and did a damn good job at being his lackey for the past 5 years. And they knew well before today that they were going to give Dawn Tyler Lee this position, because they knew well before last week that Marilyn Brown was going to be stepping down. So this was all in the works. This was fixed from the start. This was fixed from the start. This is all a political football game to them. And because this was fixed from the start, they knew and they understood what Black Columbus would be asking for, a Black female. And they knew if they appointed her temporarily, because she even said she won't be, and whether she realized it or not, she even said to the Dispatch that she will not be serving more than this interim term period. Let me get the language right in what she told the Dispatch, because I want to be absolutely correct in my language. She said, but this is certainly a new and unique opportunity to serve the residents of Franklin County. While this tenure will be brief, she has no intentions of serving more than 60 days. No intentions. So let me tell you this, because I know right now that Elizabeth Brown is going to get the seat. And I want you all to mark this day, May 21st, 2021 at 10:53 p.m. live on this show. I told you Erica Crawley would not get the appointmentship, but that Elizabeth Brown would be appointed permanently by the Central War Committee members to the seat, to fill the seat of Marilyn Brown. Now, what I need you also to keep in mind, everybody, Black Columbus, is that whoever does get the appointment, the permanent appointment by the end of July of this commission seat, they are going to have to be running for re-election next year. So they have to put in a strong candidate. But if they do that now, they don't need to worry about whether the candidate and the person who they appoint to the seat is going to get reelected, because we will take care of them if they take care of us. I told y'all that last night, and I've told you that since the start of the show. Since the launch of the show and since the launch of the Unbossed Network, what I have told you all, Black Columbus, and what has remained true for I don't know how many years, is that if you take care of Black Columbus and if you take care of Black America and Black Columbus will take care of you. Black Columbus and Black America will take care of you if you take care of them. I mean, what I'm trying to tell you all is that you aren't doing backroom deals. You aren't doing all this last minute wishy-washy stuff and things like this and pulling people out of the mayor's office, pulling people out of the political inside to make this work and to make it seem like things are on an up and up because you give us a little bit of what we want. No, that's not how the game works. I said not only did we want a Black woman appointed to the seat, we can go back and play and roll the clip of last week's show when I said that. Not only did I say we wanted a Black woman appointed, but what I told you all is that we wanted a Black progressive sister appointed to the commission. Now, some of you are now asking what's going to happen to Councilwoman Elizabeth Brown's seat when she is appointed, because I just told you she's going to be appointed to the commission. Whether you see it right now or not, she's going to be appointed. Now, what's going to happen to her seat is that now City Council will get to hold their own appointmentship and appoint somebody else to fulfill the remainder of her term, because she'll be up for election in 2023 with the rest of the city leadership, from the mayor on down to the city auditor and city attorney as well. The entire council will be up and for re-election, and they will be adding 2 more seats to the council in 23. So this person who is appointed to city council now will just be another person. Now the question is, who's going to fill Liz Brown's seat? I can't say that I know who's going to fill Liz Brown's seat at this moment. I could see them doing something very fancy with moving Nick Bankston or Lourdes, appointing them, because neither one of them are really strong on a ticket or make up a strong ticket for Shannon. So they give one of them the seat, and then they appoint somebody and replace somebody on Shannon Harton's slate ticket from within the party. Now, that's typically how the fix is done. I don't know, but what I'm saying is we have to vote all of their corrupt asses out in 2023. That's what I'm fundamentally saying on city council. But when it comes to this whole debacle of Don Tyler Lee stepping down a few months ago because she knew she was going to be tapped, this is all bullshit. And then not being open and transparent with it is even more bullshit. But here, let me break this down for you all even more. Dawn, she's replacing Marilyn Brown, who retired after more than 15 years of service on the commission earlier this month. She, in her retirement statement, she says she was stepping down due to family health issues. So under the state of Ohio law, there were 2 remaining commissioners here in Franklin County, Kevin Boyce and John O'Grady. And so that left Kevin Boyce and John O'Grady in the interim to appoint a replacement to serve for up to 45 days. And they named former chief of staff to current Columbus mayor Andy to fill that seat, and her name is Don Tyler Lee. So that's how we get there. But now let's talk about what's going to happen over the next 45 days, because she took the oath earlier today, the oath to become, and she is now a current Franklin County Commissioner because she's already taken an oath, as I just stated. So now what's going to happen is that the Franklin County Democratic Party's Central Committee ward members will now have to name a replacement in the next 45 days to serve in the remainder of Marilyn Brown's term, which is set to end on December 31st, 2021. Now, we've already been told by Don Tyler Lee that she only wanted this for its historical value. We've already been told by her that she has no interest in pursuing this job, this step up the political food chain, if you have, beyond this interim 45-day period. She's not interested. She doesn't care about it. So how in the world can she care about any of this? But what blows my mind and what intrigues me even more on tonight is that Commissioner Kevin Boyce has said that he just couldn't think of any person from within Central Ohio who had the epitome of public service more than her. And what he said is, whether it's 35 days or 300 days, that we here in the county and them on the commission have so much work that they are in the process of doing, and how they are impacting so many lives every day, and how their presence and how Don Tyler Lee's presence will be felt while she's there. They said her leadership and her voice and her perspective is welcome. But why waste time in somebody who's not even interested in a job, appointing them to the seat to even begin with? That's what I'm trying to figure out tonight. That's truly what I'm trying to figure out tonight. And I've already told you all that Columbus City Council President Pro Tempore Elizabeth Brown is interested in the seat. State Representative Erica Crowley is interested in the seat. Franklin County Clerk of Courts Marilyn O'Shaughnessy is interested in the seat. And Worthington, I said Westerville earlier, but what I'm correcting myself and correcting the record here now is that Worthington School Board member Brother Sam Sim and Gahanna Jefferson School Board President Beryl Pinacote have all said they are interested in the job. And there are a dozen more people with them who are also interested in the job. But our current commissioners, who pulled her up out of nowhere months ago because they told her she was going to get the nod, and they didn't want all this flashback because she worked as the deputy chief of staff for the mayor, already had to fix in. They ran amok a long time ago. They ran amok a long time ago. My question is what has Don Tyler Lee done for Black Central Ohioans lately? What has she done for us lately? Not just Central Ohioans, but what has she done for Black Columbus lately? What did she do while she was in the mayor's office? Was she really fighting for Black folks? Because I don't think she was. We already know Kevin Boyce wasn't fighting for and isn't fighting for Black folks. Him doing PR stunts like he did this summer, that's not fighting for Black folks. It's not. It's not. And just to give you a little bit about more about Don Tyler Lee, she served as a senior VP of Community Impact for United Way prior to becoming the deputy chief of staff. And she left the city earlier during the month of April, just a few weeks ago. And her reasoning for leaving it is to start her own consulting business. But we now know why she left the mayor's office. We now know why she didn't want to be the chief of staff any longer. It's because she was setting herself up because she knew she was about to get this interim appointmentship. Now, it's worth noting that she's going to receive the regular commissioner pay that all commissioners must receive, dictated by state law. County commissioners' salaries, not only are they dictated and set by state law, but they're also based on the county's population. So the total salary that former Commissioner Marilyn Brown was making was about $114,000 a year, or to break it down for you, $2,193.39 per week. More than what most folk in this city, or I shouldn't say most folk, let me back that up, more than a good majority of folk in this city make in a year's time. More than what they make in a year's time. So she will, here, let's do this. Let's do this right here. Let's pull up the calculator. 45 days divided by 7 is 6.5 weeks. So 6.4 or 6.5 time, we're going to get this number right here tonight on how much money she's going to get paid just during the intro, because I want you all to know how much of our tax dollars, how much of our money is going into her pockets. And she doesn't plan on doing a damn thing for us during this time that she's in office. $2,193.39 is what she is what commissioners make weekly. So she'll be in office a little under 6.5 weeks. So during that time, she will make roughly $14,037.69 as an interim county commissioner. And she's not going to do a damn thing for us. That is criminal. That is criminal. And we need to stay on their asses. We need to continue to call Kevin Boyce's office. We now need to call her office. And we now need to continue to call Franklin County Commissioner John O'Grady. And we need to call each of the Central War Committee members and call the Democratic Party and say, we want her ass out. We don't want her getting a little over 14 grand because she told us on the record out of her own mouth that she wasn't going to do shit and that she wasn't interested in the job. Now, call me crazy, but that is what she told dispatch reporters. That is what she told my journalist colleague, Mark Kovic. And Mark's an all right guy. That's what she told him. That's what she not only told him, but that's what she told him on the record. That's the words that came out of her mouth shortly after she took the oath of office. She didn't want the job. But since she had the job, she would have to do something with it. But she had no intentions on keeping the job longer than 45 days. Watch.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show tonight. I want to talk about our second story tonight, about how violence is getting worse here in the city, and what Andy has as a plan just isn't working. He thinks it is, but it's not. And I want to talk about his plan a little more, but I want to play this clip for you first.
And asked the mayor today what he's doing to prevent more 9-year-olds from being caught in the crossfire.
A lot, but when you look at the face of that little 9-year-old girl and realize she's one of nearly 800 people in the city of Columbus so far this year to be the victim of violence and survive.
To the family of the 9-year-old, this has to stop. This is unacceptable in our city, and I need everybody else to step up.
Since last June, violent crime in the city of Columbus has increased at record-setting levels. More than 200 more people have been the victims of felonious assaults than last year at this time. And the city has experienced nearly double the amount of homicides. Take a look at where all 66 homicides have happened across the city. So what do you have to say to those neighbors who have said, we've heard you before, Mayor, we've heard you say we're going to put an end to this violence, the community's going to come together, but they continue to see the violence increase?
Well, I think that's why today's announcement is so important. It helps us make our approach even more comprehensive and really investing directly into young people with respect to programming.
In an effort to give youth an alternative to crime, Ginther announced several summer camp programs, late-night basketball, free lunches, and free entry to city pools. Do you think some of these programs are going to target those kids, those youth who are causing a lot of the violence in the streets?
I certainly hope so. And we're going to be working, as you know, we're working with the courts, the judges, our suburban mayors, law enforcement on putting together and expanding diversion efforts.
And keep in mind, the violent crime rate in the city of Columbus didn't start to spike until June of last year. That is something the mayor and police do not want to see repeat itself. In Columbus, Lacey Crisp, 10 TV News.
Back here out live right there, and at a clip you saw, or not you saw, but you heard a few different things brought up by the mayor. I'm trying to get my words straight right here because the mayor, he pisses me the fuck off. I'm sorry. He really, really does. And for all of you that watch this show and say, Devontae, you cuss too much. Well, cussing keeps me stress-free and keeps me sane while doing this show. And sometimes you just need to cuss to get it all out. Cussing keeps me from doing a lot of different things, so I'm just going to continue to do it. But no. So in just the last year alone, you heard Lacey say that the violence began back in June of 2020. That was when everything really began to feel the ramifications of being shut down from COVID. I remember it was June 8th, I believe, June 8th or June 9th. The mayor had a press conference in the Linden area, in South Linden to be specific, at Linden Pride, outside on the corner of Cleveland Avenue and 11th. And they were talking about the rising homicide numbers then, almost a year ago. And almost a year ago to the date, in fact, just 11 months ago. And the mayor didn't have much of a plan then, nor does he have one now. But the issue with the mayor is that the only time he cares about Black Columbus is during election season. And the reason why we are getting all of these programs now, like late night basketball, he's trying to open up the polls, he's trying to put more free food and things out there for our children to have access to during the summer and all of that stuff. The only reason he's doing that is because it's election time, not for him, but it's election time for his council people. It's election time for Shannon Harton. It's election time not for Mitch Brown or Priscilla Tyson because they're retiring, but they've put Lourdes Patia in Priscilla's seat, and in Mitch's seat they put Nick Bankston in. And the only reason they are trying to move forward with all of this is because they believe if they do all of this, we'll vote for them
no, we aren't going to vote for you anymore because the number of homicides have doubled and are at an all-time record high. If we keep this up by the end of the year, we'll probably hit over 200 homicides, which will be the highest in the city's history. Right now, we have well over any number we've ever seen in the city's history of felonious assaults. It's double what it was last year at this time. And I am reminded of what Dr. King said. Dr. King said, violence is the love language of the oppressed. So I keep wondering to myself, and keep asking myself, why are people dying? And I know some of you will probably say, well, it's black people shooting black folks up. Well, black folks are probably shooting black folks up because we don't have nobody's trying to invest in our communities. And when they do invest in our communities, it's all about gentrification, moving us out. Not only is it about moving us out of our neighborhoods, but they aren't worried about how we are getting our proper education. How if we don't get the proper education we need vis-a-vis, we can't get a good paying job. And if we can't get a good paying job, we can't pay our light bill. And if we can't pay our light bill and water bill and gas bill and can't put food on our table, then come on now, you get the picture. Then parents aren't in children's lives. And then when parents aren't in children's lives, you see all this violence among teens and things like this. But the question needs to become, what programs can we put in place? Well, I tell you this, our next story we're going to talk about is Safe Streets. I don't want to get into Safe Streets just yet, but I will say this about Safe Streets. It's a decent program. I said decent. I didn't say good. I didn't say bad. I'll say like the French say, comme ci, comme ça, not good, not bad. Bien, not good, not bad. So, with that being said, if we don't learn to, as one mother put it to me a couple weeks ago when I was out walking the community right after Micaiah Bryant was lynched by a Columbus police officer here in the city of Columbus, who was 23, on the force for 15 months. Yes, I said after she was lynched by him. I had the opportunity to talk with a mother in South Linden. She's the mother of 4 kids. And one of the things she was explaining to me is that she doesn't allow her kids to go far from her or even across the street to play with their friends, is because she doesn't know what's going to happen if somebody's going to come by and shoot up, come in a drive-by retaliating against the house next door and shoot up the house next door, but a bullet accidentally hits the kid, and so on and so on. And I've heard so many of those stories, but not just that, we need to do better. And the only way we can do better is if we defund the Columbus Police Department. Notice I didn't say abolish the police department, ladies and gentlemen, because if we need the police. I don't care what nobody says. We need to police. We need good policing. We need good community policing. Community policing is what we need. And that's the problem with what's going on today, is we don't have good community policing. We never had good community policing. Over 75% of the department of officers who work for the Columbus Police Department don't even live within Columbus. And that's a big problem. They can't communicate with the community because they don't live in the community. that they work in. That's a big problem. But we do need the police. We need good community policing. And that's why I'm not in favor of abolishing the police, but we need to defund the police. And what I mean by defund the police is they don't need their budget this year was $360 million. They don't need $360 million in their budget. They don't need 6 helicopters. We have more helicopters in our fleet of helicopters than Chicago and New York City combined. We have more helicopters than Chicago. And we are, as the mayor likes to tout, the 15th largest city in America. And yet we have 6 police helicopters. But those police helicopters spend time spelling CPD out in the sky, and nothing happens to them for spelling CPD out in the skies of Columbus. We need to defund the police. And here's how we need to defund them. We need to slash their budget by half. And with that, $360 million divided by 2 comes out to be roughly, everybody who doesn't know how to do quick math, $130 million. We need to take that $130 million, leaving $130 million with CPD. We need to take the $130 million that we are using to defund from them, and we need to invest that into parks and recs. We need to invest that into health and human services. Because I'm here to tell you today, I'm probably one of the only Black people in the city who will take the stance and say this. And that is, we here in the city of Columbus, we put way too much on our cops. We do. We ask them to play doctor and nurse. We ask them to play psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists when they come out to the scenes. They shouldn't have to do that. Their job is to protect and serve. And last time I checked, protecting and serving didn't mean that you needed to be able to play psychologists. You didn't need to be able to play psychiatrists. And because of this, and because we asked them to do all of this, now in the last 7 months, we have had 4 people killed at the hands of law enforcement here in this city. Casey Goodson Jr., Andre Hill, Miles Jackson, Micaiah Bryant. 4 people in 7 months. And each of those people, Casey Goodson Jr. and Andre Hill, were killed within days back in December, before the turn of the new year. Miles Jackson and Micaiah Bryant were killed just within 8 days of each other as well. We couldn't even begin to celebrate, rather, the little teensy tiny victory of Derek Chauvin being convicted guilty on all 3 charges, because moments prior to that, Micaiah's life was taken. Columbus Police Department needs to be defunded. But it's not going to be defunded as long as we allow people like Andy to keep convincing us that he's the right person for the job of running the city. Andy, you are not the right person to be running the city, because violence is at an all-time high in Columbus. It's time for a change. And the only way things are going to change is if we vote Andy's ass out. And not only do we vote Andy's ass out, but we vote everybody on city council out. We vote them all out. And we vote some real progressive change makers who are from the community, from these streets, who knows what life is like on these streets. We put them in office. But nothing changes if nothing changes. We see the corruptness that goes on inside of the halls of City Hall. We see how corrupt they are. We see how when CPD does kill a chow, that the mayor comes out and says takes the officer's side. The interim chief of police, Mike Woods, he comes out and says, my officers are trained to shoot and kill in center mass, because if we taught them to shoot in the leg, that area would just be too small and they couldn't see that. So they had to shoot Micaiah 4 times in the chest. And now the child won't get to hug her mother again, won't get to celebrate any more Christmases with her siblings, won't get to have any more Sunday or Thanksgiving dinners, won't get to do any of the things she loved to do. We really need to divest and defund the Columbus Police Department, or violence will continue to go up. I'm not saying the programs that the mayor has put in place aren't going to work, but clearly all this money they are spending, because they've spent millions upon tens of millions of dollars over the last few weeks, and really over the last few months. And they have not once chosen an organization with boots on the ground to put money into. If they were serious about fixing the problem with violence, they would have given hot violence money. They would have given mothers of murdered children of Columbus money. They would have given We Are Linden money. They would have given the Southfield area money. They would have given all these communities with boots on it, all these community organizations rather, with boots on the ground, money to be able to fund real action, because with them having boots on the ground, they know how to speak the language of the people in their community. They know what their community needs. They know why the violence is happening. I just said it and tried to explain it y'all minutes ago. A lot of this violence is going on because people can't find jobs. A lot of this violence is going on because people can't afford to get an education, because they have to go on a computer and they aren't. It's not their fault, but they're illiterate and can't get on the computer. And if they aren't illiterate, they can't afford Wi-Fi. It's a real thing. I know they have a free Wi-Fi program now, but look at what areas of the city that is in. The King Lincoln District. How many folk that look like me and you, who aren't making 6 figures, live in a King Lincoln District that you know right now? Exactly. They don't have those real programs that could be effective in communities that need the actual help. And the violence will continue to rise. And a lot of people in the comments are saying they didn't vote for Andy. I'm glad they didn't. Andy has went on record saying he won't run again for mayor, but I don't buy that. But I could tell you what, whether he runs again for mayor or not, he will not run unopposed again in this city for mayor. I can fucking promise you that. I'll bet money on that. He'll never run unopposed in this city for mayor again. And you can mark my word on this. For as long as I'm black, Andy Ginther, you'll never run unopposed for mayor in this city again, so long as I have breath in my body, because it's time for a change, and you are not cutting it. The Civilian Review Board, we all love the ideal of it, and you came to us last year around election time after the police beat us half to death on national TV. Beat us half to damn death on national TV. But that's what they did to our ancestors too back in the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement, except this time they didn't use water hoses and dogs. The water hoses was pepper spray and mace and that tear gas and whatever chemical they were launching and releasing from the SWAT vehicles. And the wooden bullets were the barking dogs.
Thank you for watching the Unbought and Unbossed show. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, what's holding you back from smashing the subscribe button? Don't forget to hit the bell to get notified every time we post a new episode. Devontae will be back here every single weekday, breaking down the most important news stories to Black America. We'd love for you to share this episode with your friends and family. And remember, Black America, to keep it real because your conscience depends on it.